You know, when we think about like managing our health, especially when it comes to like family planning, it often feels like we're stuck with choices that always involve some kind of compromise. But what if there was a way to like totally sidestep that? Like, what if you could actually have long-term pregnancy prevention without needing a procedure or even having to remember to take a pill every single day?
Yeah, that's a really intriguing idea, isn't it?
It is, and that's actually exactly what we're going to be talking about today.
It is. We're doing a deep dive today on a pretty cool innovation coming out of MIT. It's a new self-injecting contraceptive.
Ooh, very interesting.
So for everyone listening in today, our mission is to break down how this technology actually works. And then we're going to explore, what advantages it might have and figure out just how far along this whole thing really is.
Right, because it's one thing to have a cool idea, but it's another to like actually see it through.
Yeah, exactly.
So, to get into all of this, we'll be looking at a recent news article that really digs into this whole scientific breakthrough.
All right, so to set the stage a little bit, let's think about the current options when it comes to long-term birth control. We've got implants that can be effective for years, but those require going to a clinic and having a minor surgical procedure. Then on the other hand, there are the shorter-term methods like getting an injection every 3 months.
Hmm.
So it seems like no matter what you choose, you're kind of stuck with some trade-offs, right?
It definitely does. It's like picking between two things that neither are exactly what you want.
Right.
So, what are some of the downsides or unmet needs that this new technology is actually trying to address? Like, what's the problem it's solving?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with that trade-off thing. Even though the current methods are effective for a lot of people, needing to have a procedure can be a big obstacle. It might be too expensive or hard to get to a clinic, and some people just don't like the idea of it.
Right.
And even with the injections, yeah, they're convenient in a way, but remembering those appointments and actually making time for them can still be a hassle.
Yeah, life gets in the way sometimes.
It does. So this new approach is really all about giving people a long-lasting method that puts more control and ease right in their hands.
So that leads us to this DIY jab that we've been hearing about. Can you break down exactly what makes this injection so different?
Okay, so the real magic is in how it's made. We're talking about a self-administered injection that's packed with these microscopic crystals.
I probably grew up pressed.
Yeah, tiny little things. But here's where it gets super interesting. Once these crystals are under your skin, they actually start to assemble themselves into a structure that slowly releases hormones over time. And those hormones, as you probably know, prevent the release of an egg, so fertilization just can't happen.
Wow, so instead of getting one big dose that your body processes really quickly, these crystals basically create a little hormone factory right there under your skin.
Exactly.
That's pretty incredible. Now, the article mentions self-aggregating long-acting injectable microcrystals, or SLIMs for short. Is that the actual scientific term for these things?
It is, yep. SLIMS is the term they use in the Nature Chemical Engineering study to describe these self-assembling microcrystals. And that self-aggregating part is key because that's what lets them release the contraceptive hormones continuously over a really long time.
Okay, so you're saying a long time, but how long are we actually talking here? The article mentions some pretty promising results from some animal studies.
Right, so the studies they did in rats showed that the drug could be released for at least 97 days. That's already longer than the 3 months you get with the typical contraceptive injections. And the researchers are even more excited about the possibility of tweaking the formula of these crystals to make that release time even longer.
So we could be looking at a self-administered contraceptive that lasts much longer than anything else out there right now.
Exactly.
That's a game changer.
It is.
But you know what comes to mind? I'm thinking about the comfort factor.
Yeah.
Like nobody likes getting poked with needles, especially if they're doing it to themselves.
You're absolutely right, and the researchers were definitely thinking about that too. Dr. Traverso, who was one of the lead scientists on the study, talked about how they really focused on making it as comfortable as possible for the patient. They designed the whole thing to use super small needles, specifically to reduce bruising and bleeding that sometimes happen with injections.
That's great because honestly, if something's not easy or comfortable to use, people just aren't going to use it, even if it works really well.
Yeah, for sure. Making something user-friendly is just as important as making it effective.
And speaking of making it accessible, the article also pointed out how this could be huge for people in low-resource settings.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so imagine someone in a rural area who has to travel for days just to get to a clinic for contraception. This self-injectable option could give them a level of control over their reproductive health that they've never had before.
Right.
It could free them from having to constantly go back and forth to the clinic, which often really disrupts their lives and their work.
It's not just about convenience, it's about access and equity, too.
Exactly. As Dr. Traverso said, this could be a really helpful option for people in low-resource settings where getting daily pills or having contraceptive devices fitted by healthcare workers is just really tough or even impossible.
Yeah.
He went on to say, "We think that Slim could become a new part of the family planning options that are available to women, especially for those in low-resource settings, where choices for contraception and healthcare facilities are just really limited. So this technology has the potential to really change things by making long-acting contraception available in places where healthcare isn't easy to get to."
That's amazing. It really shows how scientific progress can make a huge difference in people's lives, especially for those who have been underserved by the healthcare
For
system.
sure.
Now it seems like this technology could be used for way more than just contraception, right? The article hinted at some other applications too.
Yeah, this is where things get really exciting.
Yeah.
The researchers believe that this same delivery system, with those self-assembling crystals, could work for all sorts of medicines that need to be released over a long time. They specifically mentioned things like HIV, tuberculosis, schizophrenia, chronic pain, and even some metabolic diseases.
Wow, that's a really wide range of conditions.
Yeah, it is. Think about someone who's living with HIV and has to take pills every day.
Right.
A long-acting injectable could make sticking to their treatment plan so much easier and could improve their health outcomes overall.
So basically, these slims could be used as a platform to deliver all kinds of medicines over long periods of time, which means people wouldn't have to take pills or get injections as often.
Exactly. And Dr. Traverso even talked about how simple the system is at its core. He said it's a very simple system. Basically, it's a solvent, the drug, and then you add a bit of bioresorbable polymer. And that polymer is just a material that the body can safely break down over time.
So it's simple but effective.
Yeah, exactly. And because it's so simple, it could be easier and cheaper to adapt it for all kinds of different treatments. The fact that the researchers are already looking at other medical conditions shows you how versatile they think this technology really is.
It all sounds so promising.
It does.
But we always have to remember that any new scientific development, especially one that's in its early stages, has a long way to go before it's ready for prime time. So where is this self-injecting contraceptive at right now in terms of development? Have there been any trials with people yet?
It's super important to point out, and the article made this clear, that this technology hasn't been tested on humans yet.
Okay.
Now, the fact that it worked well in the animal models, specifically rats, is really encouraging. It gives them a good reason to keep going with the research. The team is now moving on to more advanced preclinical studies where they'll look at how well the microcrystals assemble and release the drug in an environment that's more like human skin.
Oh, okay, so like a simulated human environment.
Yeah, exactly. They need to do this to make sure that the technology is both safe and effective before they even think about testing it on humans. It's a really important step to bridge the gap between those early animal studies and actually using it in people.
So basically, while the early results are super exciting and suggest a whole new way of delivering medicine, there's still a lot more research and testing that needs to happen.
Right.
Patience is key in the world of medical innovation.
Absolutely. But the initial data is definitely promising, and it could really change how we give certain medications.
So let's bring it all back to you, our listener.
Right.
What are the key takeaways from this deep dive into this new self-injecting contraceptive?
Well, what really stands out is that this technology could bring together several big advantages. We're talking about the possibility of having long-lasting contraception without needing surgery, which solves a big issue with the current options. The fact that it could be self-administered means more convenience and freedom for people because they wouldn't have to rely on going to the clinic all the time. And using smaller needles makes the whole process way more comfortable, especially for self-injection. But maybe the most impactful thing is how this technology could improve access to essential family planning resources in places where healthcare is hard to come by.
Yeah, the potential impact on global health is huge.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget, this microcrystal delivery system could also work for other long-acting medications, which opens up all sorts of exciting possibilities for treating chronic conditions.
It really does feel like a development that could have a massive ripple effect. It's remarkable to think that something as basic as how people manage pregnancy prevention might be on the verge of such a big change.
It is, and the fact that it could also impact the treatment of other long-term illnesses makes it even more compelling.
For sure. So to our listeners out there, we want you to think about this. What if this convenient, long-lasting, self-administered contraceptive was available to everyone? How would that change things? How would it affect reproductive choices, family planning, and even public health, especially in communities that don't have easy access to healthcare?
It's a lot to consider.
It is. And one final thought for everyone. If this microcrystal system turns out to be safe and effective in humans, what other medical treatments that now need frequent doses could be revolutionized by this kind of long-acting, self-administered approach?
That's a great question.
It is. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.